Have you ever seen an old television when it was not tuned to a channel? The screen was filled with random black and white dots. We call that static. When someone turned the tuning knob, the static slowly disappeared and the picture became clear. A diffusion model does something that looks similar. It begins with digital noise and learns how to turn that noise into an image. Hi, and welcome to Stock AI. In this tutorial series, we're going to build up a diffusion model one piece at a time. We won't assume that you already know the notation, and we'll explain each symbol when it first appears. For the first part, our question is simple. How can a machine start with random noise and eventually generate a new image? To answer that, we first need to understand what an image looks like to a computer. To us, this is a picture of a cat. To a computer, it is a grid of pixels. When we zoom into one small area, we can see those pixels as separate square cells. Each cell stores three numbers: one for red, one for green, and one for blue. Here, for example, the values are 241 for red, 188 for green, and 33 for blue. Together, those three values produce this yellow-orange color. We can split the image into three layers, also called channels: a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel. The image used here is 1024 pixels wide and 1024 pixels high. With three values at every pixel, that gives us 3 million numbers. The computer doesn't receive the word cat, it only receives this large block of numbers. Pixel values normally run from 0 to 255. Before training, we usually normalize them into a smaller range, such as -1 to +1. This makes the values easier for the neural network to process. We also train on several images at once. That group is called a batch. So the full data shape contains the batch size, the image height, the image width, and the three color channels. On our training diagram, the clean image is called X0. This is the original image before we add any noise. Now that we have the clean image, we need the second ingredient, the noise itself. The colored static in this video isn't made by choosing arbitrary values. The values are sampled from a probability distribution called the normal distribution or the Gaussian distribution. This bell-shaped curve shows which values are more likely. Values near zero are common, so they appear near the tall center of the curve. Large positive or negative values are possible, but they are less common, so they appear in the lower tails. The expression epsilon is sampled from n of 0 and 1 means that epsilon is a random value from a normal distribution with a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. Each sample gives us one number. We can map one sampled number to a shade between dark and light. Then we sample again for every position in a grid. For a color image, we need three samples at each position, one for red, one for green, and one for blue. These samples form three full channels with the same shape as the image. When we put those channels together, we get the colored static on screen. We call this complete noise tensor epsilon. Sigma controls the spread of the distribution. A larger sigma produces values with a wider range, which means stronger noise. There's one useful property here. When independent Gaussian noise values are added together, the result is still Gaussian noise. Only its total strength changes. We will use that property in the next episode. Our diagram now has X0, the clean image, and epsilon, the random noise. Next, we'll combine them to create a noisy image. The process that adds noise to a clean image is called the forward diffusion process. It begins at X0, the clean image. At every time step, we keep most of the previous image and add a small amount of fresh Gaussian noise. The result is x1, then x2, and so on. One step changes the image only slightly, but after many steps, the noise accumulates until we reach xt, which is almost pure noise. The beta value at each step controls how much new noise we add. A small beta means a small change. Alpha is defined as 1 minus beta. If beta is the amount of noise added in one step, alpha tells us how much of the previous signal is kept. Alpha bar is the product of all the alpha values up to timestep t. In plain language, alpha bar tracks how much of the original image remains after all the steps so far. During training, we don't want to calculate every earlier step just to reach one noisy image. Fortunately, we don't have to, because all the smaller Gaussian noise additions can be combined. We can jump directly from x0 to xt. We keep the amount of the clean image specified by the square root of alpha bar and add the matching amount of epsilon. This produces the same distribution of noisy images as taking all the small steps, but it takes one calculation instead of hundreds. The forward section is now complete. Choose a time step, take a clean image, sample from some noise, and create xt. The next question is how much noise each time step should add. The complete list of beta values is called the noise schedule. It decides how quickly the image loses information across the time steps. A basic linear schedule increases beta at a constant rate. Each individual beta is small, but the effect accumulates. As the alpha values are multiplied together, alpha bar drops quickly. By time step 500, less than 10% of the original signal remains in this example. The yellow curve shows a cosine schedule. Compared with the blue linear schedule, it keeps more of the image through the middle of the process and removes the remaining information more gradually. At the same time step, the two schedules can therefore produce very different noisy images. During training, the model sees noisy images from many different time steps. Think of each time step as a different practice problem. If the image becomes pure noise too early, many late time steps look almost identical. Those examples give the model less useful variety. A schedule that spreads the changes more evenly gives us a better range of training examples. The road trip animation shows the same idea. Both schedules have the same number of time steps. The linear schedule reaches almost pure noise early, so its later steps make very little visible difference. The cosine schedule continues changing across more of the trip. The schedule is fixed before training. It is not learned by the network. It is part of how we prepare the training examples. So far, everything has moved from a clean image toward noise. To generate an image, we need to move in the opposite direction. So far, we have only added noise. Over 4 episodes, we turn a clean image into pure static, one step at a time. Now we want to do the reverse. Start from the noise and get the image back. The question is whether we can. Image generation starts at xt, which is random noise, and moves toward x0 one step at a time. At each step, we want a slightly less noisy image. Drawing the reverse arrows is easy. Calculating the exact reverse step is the difficult part. Look at this noisy image xt. Several different, cleaner images could have produced something similar after noise was added. It might have come from a cat, a dog, or many other images. So xt does not tell us one exact previous image. The true reverse probability exists, but we cannot calculate it directly without knowing the full distribution of real images. This is where the neural network is needed. It receives two inputs, the noisy image xt and the current time step t. It predicts the information needed to move toward a slightly cleaner image. That output becomes the input for the next step, and the same network runs again, Repeating the process gradually removes noise. The notation pure theta means that this reverse rule is learned. Theta represents all the adjustable parameters or weights inside the network. Remember, a bit similar to the knobs of our analog TV, but instead of a few, it has millions of knobs and we can't tune them by hand. The diagram now has a place for the learned model, but we'll need to define its exact prediction target. What should the network output? A noise image is really two things added together, a clean picture and the noise on top of it. The model never sees those two parts on their own, it only sees the mixed. So which part should be predicted? There are several possible targets. A network can predict the clean image x0, the added noise epsilon, or another quantity called V that combines information from both. The DDPM approach shown here predicts the noise. The network receives xt and t, and its output is called epsilon theta. The small hat over epsilon means the estimate, because this is the network's guess, not the true noise. Remember how we created xt during the forward process. We sampled epsilon ourselves and added it to the clean image. That means we already know the exact noise used in every training example. We keep it as the correct answer. The network sees xt and tries to predict epsilon. Then we compare its prediction with the stored epsilon. No person has to label the noise by hand. If the model can estimate the noise inside xt, we can subtract that estimated noise and undo the scaling. This gives us an estimate of x0. It will not be perfect, especially when xt contains a lot of noise, but it gives the reverse process a useful direction for the next step. We now have the network and its output epsilon theta. The last missing training piece is a numerical score that tells the network how accurate its guess was. We know the noise we added, epsilon. The network gives us a guess, epsilon hat. They will not match exactly. So how do you grade a guess? On the left is the true noise, epsilon. In the middle is the network's predicted noise, epsilon hat. They may both look like static to us, but their individual values are different. We compare them cell by cell. For each value, we subtract the prediction from the truth and square the difference. Squaring removes negative signs and makes larger errors count more heavily. Then we average all those squared differences. The result is one number called the mean squared error, or MSE. In this model, that number is the training loss. At the beginning of training, the network's prediction is poor, so the loss is high. Training adjusts the network's weight in a direction that reduces that loss. This happens over many updates. As the loss decreases, the predicted noise becomes closer to the true noise. The loss is not a separate component that fixes the image. It is the measurement used to update the network. We repeat this with many clean images, random time steps, and the newly sampled noise. Each combination produces another training example and another score. The expectation symbol in the equation means that the objective is average over all of these random choices, not calculated from just one example. Now the training diagram is complete, we can create a noisy input. Ask the network to predict its noise, compare that prediction with the known answer, and use the loss to improve the network. This is the forward equation we built step by step. The first term keeps part of the clean image x0. The second term adds Gaussian noise epsilon. Alpha bar controls the balance between them at time step t. No neural network is used here. This is simply how we create noisy examples for training. Next, we give the noisy image xt and the time step t to the neural network. The network predicts the noise it believes was added. That prediction is epsilon theta. Because we kept the original epsilon, we can compare the two. The square difference gives us the loss. Training changes the network's weight so that this loss becomes smaller across many examples. Once the network can estimate the noise, that estimate can be used to calculate a cleaner image. This learned prediction is the key part that we need for the reverse process. After training, we can start with random noise and apply the learn reverse step repeatedly. At each time step, the model predicts noise, removes the required amount, and may add a small amount of fresh random noise. The term sigma t times z represents that new randomness. Because each run uses random values, the model can produce different images instead of repeating the same result every time. We will study this sampling process in detail later in the series. Let's summarize part 1. Adding noise is a fixed mathematical process. We use it to create training examples from real images. The neural network learns the opposite task by predicting the noise inside each example. So when the screen says diffusion is loss run backwards, the practical meaning is this. Train a model to recognize added noise, then use that model repeatedly to move from noise toward an image. In part 2, we will open the network itself and see why diffusion models commonly use an architecture shaped like a U. Thanks for watching Stock AI. I will see you in the next part.